Well folks, we have Gran Turismo 7's 1.38 update here to now play with, and so it's time for my first impressions, thoughts, what to expect if you want to boot up the game and check it out. Maybe for those who haven't bothered logging in for a few months now, is it worth coming back? I think that one's pretty obvious if you've been paying any kind of attention to the news and the silhouettes and the trailers, etc. It's certainly not that special of an update at all. In fact, you could probably argue, even for those who do like it, that it is one of the weakest updates we've had so far. 3 front-wheel drive cars, not a bad thing, but I personally prefer it when they're peppered in with other kinds of car as well. But we've got, of course, the Group 4 Mazda 3. We've got the probably most interesting of the three in terms of its potential range of use, the newest shaped Civic Type R 2022, and of course, a car which we saw back in Gran Turismo Sport. I did a video on it years ago on the channel at this point, and it's finally arrived, the Time Attack EG Civic. Of course, motor swapped, completely stripped out, really cool interior look as well. Some surprising visual upgrades actually on that Civic also, and you'll see some of those if you haven't logged into the game. I'll show them on screen as well, and of course you'll see some of those showcased in my individual review for that Civic, which will most likely be tomorrow. So, what are the vehicles like first of all, then we'll talk about the rest of the update in terms of other interesting stuff. Incidentally, also, you can now buy the GR Corolla for about 70,000 credits from the Toyota dealer, and interestingly, you can now get the ambulance, also of course from Toyota, but for free. You don't have to pay anything for it, and it would appear, at least as far as I could tell, that you can get as many as you want, I think, for free. I didn't actually go back and double check, but I now have 2 of them, the one that I already had and then one of the new ones. It doesn't seem that you can sell it at all at the moment, which makes sense being a free novelty vehicle, so don't think it's some kind of money glitch. It isn't. But it is a vehicle that you could use, of course, to have multiple builds. You could have a drift build, a rally build, etc, etc. And for those who did not check out the most recent special projects pack that I did on the channel, you might want to use the ambulance to try out the Dakar Rally Raid style truck that I built out of that one. In terms of the vehicles and their overview, the Honda you can immediately use in some time trial events. There's an under 17 and over 17 bracket. I just entered both because it's not like I'm going to be the fastest, so who cares anyway, just to get the cash. One's at Suzuka, one's at the Nordschleife. You'll see the Nordschleife here with the Civic, and yeah, it's, for a front-wheel drive chassis especially, very, very capable. You can feel the weight, it's over 1,400 kilos, and of course I'll get more in depth into each of the 3 cars in their own reviews, but this one is certainly a strong start. The power is good, the weight, although definitely there. It handles it well. It has a longer wheelbase than you'd typically expect from a Civic, of course being the fastback saloon or sedan shape. More like what you'd expect from like a JDM variant of a Civic Type R in the past, like, was it the FD2, I think it was? So yeah, strong car, what you'd expect. In terms of pricing, it's 50 grand, so not that crazy, pretty easy to get. Next up though, the Time Attack Civic, 300,000 credits. In terms of spec, just under 390 horses, it weighs barely a ton, metric ton, so just over 1,000 kilos. Like I said, looks great. You've got some options to take off the chin splitter, take off the rear wing, you can put the Honda badges back on, so some cool customization. You can make it look a little bit closer to a normal EG Civic. Of course it still isn't, so for those who did prefer the idea of a stock one, you can't get that close, but you can definitely change it up visually quite a lot from what it started off as. In terms of performance, again, you can use it in a time trial at Tsukuba. Interestingly, it kind of showed just how quick that little Super Taiku Mazda Demio build that I did was in the most recent Special Projects pack again, because that thing was very low powered, only around 150 horses, and yet it's not that far behind this, around this track. That Mazda really can be thrown through corners. This one being a time attack car, I must be honest, I'd kind of expect it to be even quicker than it is, but I guess 390 horsepower isn't that crazy. As far as time attack goes, you'll commonly see them with 2-3 times that kind of horsepower. You can definitely feel the benefit of the downforce. The wider track makes it much more stable. You definitely do want to kind of point and shoot with this car. It's a front-wheel drive missile, so if you floor it midway through the corner, you're just going to have rampant wheel spin and, of course, chronic planetary understeer, as you'd expect. The weight is low, but I will say you don't really feel the low weight, to be honest. It doesn't feel like a lightweight car because of that front wheel drive understeer and the huge downforce. It feels kind of stickier and heavier than it actually is, which I guess is quite accurate technically. You want that kind of stuck to the ground kind of feel. And of course, last but not least, we've got the Mazda 3. The Mazda, for most people, will probably take over the reins from the Atenza if you were using that already. The specs are pretty good straight out of the box even. 380 horsepower, 1,200 kilos. And I believe, if I recall correctly, correctly when I read the details on it. I think it's an alternative fuel car or something like that. So, interesting. It's not four-wheel drive. It's been converted to front-wheel drive, which, to be honest, is what I expected. I thought it would have the Audi TT treatment, which I think is kind of more weird to do that to an Audi TT than it is to this. But yeah, I mean, it's a Mazda 3, which is already good. It's a racing version. It's not as interesting as turning the normal one into a racing version with the engine swap, but at least it's an official Group 4 car for those who do want to support Mazda, I guess. Plus you do have the advantage of the more compact frame compared to the Atenza, which is a bit longer, a bit more of a traditional touring car kind of shape. In terms of total cost, 700 grand will buy you the 3 new cars, a very tidy 700 grand, 350, 350. And then, of course, if you add the Corolla on top, about 770 plus the ambulance, as I said, was free. So it's pretty cheap. In terms of new events, there are some, probably most notably a couple of new turbo events. You'll see them probably in the video anyway. And a new kind of cash event. Not really a cash cow, because the payout certainly isn't as high. But it's a new event at Bathurst. For those who are a fan of Mount Panorama, you can earn, like, I think it's 165 grand from about 7 laps in, I believe it was Group 4. So if you do want to change up the pace, I guess you could do that for some extra money. Certainly not the best way of earning money, but it's something a bit different. And we also do have 5 new engine swaps available as well. Of course, I will do a separate video showing off those, and I do need to do an updated complete list at some time in the near future for all of the additional ones that have been added as well. But for now, we've got 5 new Porsches added to the list, including the GT4 Cayman, the Classic 356, and a couple of different versions of the 911. So I will feature those in a video, like I said, perhaps even tomorrow on the channel as well as the review, or maybe even instead. We'll see how it goes. But overall, it's kind of a weird update, because on the one hand, it has brought a couple of things which people really wanted. Finally having the Time Attack Civic, having, of course, the ambulance and the Corolla now purchasable, which a lot of people were waiting for. So there's definitely good stuff in there, and it's not that expensive to buy all 3 of the new vehicles. But at the same time, we were really hoping for a circuit. It's been quite a while since we last had a circuit, especially when we know other circuits are due. Of course, at least 3 of them. And the thing that I find the most interesting is I feel like they may have a circuit planned in future, but they're going to showcase it maybe in the live events. Because I raised this before, I think it was when I talked about the silhouettes or when I discussed the Mazda being spotted, something like that, but one of the recent videos I did, you could see in the events schedule, and you can still see this in sport mode, that one of them is blank. The last one, the track, is not listed. So I think they probably are going to bring a circuit soon, and they're probably going to show it off there. I could be wrong, but, you know, we've got to hold out some hope, at least. I do try to add some positivity in there, even though for me this is definitely a very weak update. I've seen a lot of people saying they're not even going to bother playing the game anymore. I don't begrudge you for that. It certainly is a game which has, at best, very mixed intentions and mixed priorities, because it certainly seems like Kaz is moving toward the esports more and more all the time. But then at the same time, if you check the trophies of the game, and this has been pointed out to me in the past, and it was a great point that was pointed out by a number of different comments, only, well, less than 13% of players have even completed a single sport mode event. That's barely 1 in 10 people that have that level of interest in sport mode. So if the game is geared all toward the online, which at least it mostly is, not as much as sport, but certainly it still is a lot, well then that's still only 1 in 10 people. So it's a very niche audience. As vocal as those who support that are, they are kind of the minority, which is odd, because it doesn't seem like that sometimes for those of us who aren't happy with the game. It feels like we're the minority, but we actually aren't. So yeah, it's kind of a weird one. I don't really know what Kaz's priorities are, but on the point of his priorities, as a slight aside from this update, definitely stick around on the channel, because I've got a number of very interesting videos coming out about Gran Turismo 7, which I think you'll want to check out. I teased before I have a new car list, which I believe are coming to the game. You definitely want to check out that one, because if nothing else, the way that I'm reasoning why these cars are coming should probably interest you. It's quite fun. The second thing is I'm planning to do a video about the future of Gran Turismo, at least based on the current sphere and what I think Kaz and Polyphony are going for, and for those of us who maybe agree or disagree to have a discussion about that, so definitely stick around for that one. Kind of a state of Gran Turismo, if you will, and a couple of other things as well that I want to talk about within the world of GT7, as well as, of course, updating the full engine swaps list as well at some point. So stick around for those. Of course, in the next immediate few days, stick around for in-depth reviews of these new cars, and as far as other stuff which you want to touch on, maybe new scapes or whatever, of course you could put that down in the comments. But I'll see you next time with more. Tune in tomorrow for the first review, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.